The 9 Years Podcast.
All right, everybody, welcome to episode 72 of the 9 Years Podcast with myself, Nick Draper, my co-host, Stuart Deakins, and to the tune of Sorry by these fine gentlemen. Do not forget to check them out on Twitter and Facebook. On Twitter at These F Gentlemen, but also please check us out on Twitter if you haven't already, at 9YRS Podcast, Facebook as well, Instagram as well. Stu, how are you getting on this week?
Yeah, good, mate. Back into the new year, back into the swing of things, and raring to go for the 2017.
Do you have any New Year's resolutions for 2017?
I hadn't really thought of any, but I know one. Obviously, I'm getting married in this year, which is scary when you say that a little bit. So I suppose one of my New Year's resolutions is really to look at the detail of my wedding, because I passed all the detail off into the new year, and now it is the new year, and it's pretty scary. So I suppose probably take it a bit more seriously is my New Year's resolution. Have you got any New Year's resolutions?
Just a couple. I think this year I'm going to give up hard drugs and porn. I'm also hoping to find my identical hand twin, but I might struggle with that one. Anyway, top 7 lists. Let's get these out of the way. We've got a lot to get on with this week's show. Top 7 lists.
Yeah.
You came up with the idea during the week, Stu, of how we want to do our top 7s this week. So do you wish to explain?
Yeah, so I thought, obviously, with the January, the transfer window has now reopened for us, which is handy in a way. We might need to invest in there or do some business. So I thought I'd do my top 7 transfer window wish list, if that's what it's called. Yeah.
Go on, then.
So, no particular order, no particular position, but you'll probably notice by the positions I've used. So, my first one would be Billy Knott, still at Gillingham and was sub on Monday. So, with the uncertainty around Justin Edinburgh leaving Gillingham, he might be available, you never know. Ricky Miller from Dover, 24 goals this season, conference top goal scorer, believe it, 47 goals in 75 games. So, could be worth a punt, it'd be nice. One that I've been going on about a little while is Dominic Vos, who was at Wrexham but is now on loan at Grimsby. He probably wouldn't be one for the window. He's out of contract in the summer. John Akinde from Barnet, which I know you had the pleasure of seeing firsthand on Monday. Monday? No, Saturday, wasn't it?
New Year's Eve.
It was. That's it, New Year's Eve. John Joe O'Toole from Northampton. Midfielder that I think we're missing, box to box, big lump, and he's got such a cool name. I reckon we could have such a cool song with that. Stephen Payne, another one from Dover. He's got 10 goals. I really do like Dover. Everyone's not seen Dover this year. 4-3-3 they play, and their forward line is just as dynamic as ours is. And Stephen Payne plays a big part in that. 10 goals really this season. And finally, one I've always been on about is Sam Wood at Wycombe, who I just think with the width and the set pieces and stuff would be a really good signing for us in the window. What about your top 7 list this week, Nick?
Yeah, we'll talk more about your top 7 list in a moment, Stu, but I took your suggestion on board and I looked at it and I thought, I'm just going to do my top 7 list. Because you see January often abbreviated to just Jan, I thought I'd look for the top 7 players with Jan in their name.
Interesting.
So I have Jan Molby, Jan Arge Fjortoft, Matt Janssen, Adnan Januzaj, Bojan, Jan Vennegaard of Hesselink, and then I got really stuck, so Trond Janderson.
Joe, you did really well up to the end one, which is a bit poor, but I'll give you that.
But possibly the best player of all of those. Possibly. Big game coming up this Saturday, Sutton United. We're going to be talking about that game in depth today with a couple of guests. We shall announce that later. We'll also be looking back over the last couple of games, Bristol Rovers, Millwall. We've got Polo on Go. All the usual features on this week's show. But before we get into the Millwall and Bristol Rovers fixtures, we're just doing our top 7 lists. Stu, you announced your top 7 transfer targets for us, potentially for us to try and grab in the transfer window. Of those 7 you listed, with judging from your list, you're looking at either a striker or a central midfielder that's going to perhaps score a few goals for us. If you had to choose one of those top 7 lists to join us, which one would you choose?
Joe, I probably would go for a winger. So I probably would look at either Sam Wood or Billy Knott. They'll be the two that I think, a game at the moment, we need something, a bit of a variation of 4-3-3. But we need a proper winger, one that hugs the touchline, and both of them players do that easily.
So is this where you're thinking we are lacking with the current squad? Bearing in mind that Andy Bartram's come back from injury, but then he wasn't in the squad for Millwall, was he? He's dropped out again. So there's some width we've lost there. David Fitzpatrick's still out on loan on Torquay. Are you suggesting that the problem we had against Millwall with Jonathan Meads filling in, or Dean Parrott, was actually pushed outside, wasn't he, wide in the end, where we haven't got the depth that you would want?
Yeah, I think it's just being able to change different formations, isn't it? We've sort of stumbled on a 4-3-3. If you remember properly, we played 4-4-2, starting off at Walsall and then Peterborough in the Cup, and we sort of stumbled on a 4-3-3 because I think realistically we thought actually we're better attacking than we are defending, and that was our way of doing it. But since then we've become a lot more resilient at the back and clean sheets. I just think we're doing it in the second half. They always say the second half of the season people played you once already, so they've worked you out, and also I think we get a lot of respect off teams now of how we play. So I think having that 4-4-2 option would be great. I don't necessarily think we have the best wingers. I think, we've got to look at Chris Whelpdale. He's out, he's injured. Are we going to get anything from him? George Frankham, I'm not convinced at League One level George is a League One winger, I'm being truthful. And I think we just need to possibly look at adding some quality to those positions.
Fair enough. Looking back then at the past couple of games, we had Bristol Rovers on New Year's Eve, lost 2-0. Then we followed that up with a very good performance, actually, I thought, against Millwall on Monday. Possibly deserved all 3 points, actually. But following the Bristol Rovers game, Neil Ardley spoke to the press. He didn't speak after the Southend game, in which he'd been sent off, so it'd be the first time we'd heard from him for a little while. He sounded a little bit despondent. He would have been much, much happier after that Millwall performance, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he did. He went missing after the Southend game, and that's probably naturally the right thing to do because he was obviously very heated on what happened, and he probably was right to refrain from that and let Neil Cox do the honours of probably one of the most boring after-match interviews. But then we know Coxie well enough, and Coxie is very good at doing those dour and giving nothing away. His media training is excellent in his professional career. But there wasn't really nothing in there, really, and there was nothing in the build-up. But yeah, he was despondent. It was as if like he made a comment saying, he can't wave a magical wand, as if like, his tactical awareness and the stuff that he prides himself in building the squads up with as much tactical knowledge as they know. He was doing that, but it had to come from them. So he was a little bit, I think after the Millwall game, he changed massively, didn't he? He all of a sudden looked like his team responded in the way he wanted them to. And I think we all did. I think the fans, I think, you and I were very much before the game, not too sure what we're going to get. Can we get a draw? We would take a boring draw. Yes, we would. But in the end, we got a classic South London derby, which on any other day we probably could have nicked later on with Jake Reeves.
Yeah, we could have nicked it at the end, but that Millwall game, I just sensed in those final 20 minutes or so, the game did seem to just fizzle out. It was a very entertaining game for the most part. The last 20 minutes just seemed to slow down a lot. Do you think that's to do with the number of games we've had to play over a short space of time? A lot of Premier League managers have been moaning about this, as they do. But do you think we did actually see that for ourselves against Millwall? That last 20 minutes, possibly allied with the substitution of Tom Elliott leaving as well, the tempo just seemed to drop, didn't it? Seems like we almost settled for a point apiece.
Yeah, it did. I think there's a few factors in it. I think the subs we made, we brought Polion on, didn't we? And we sort of changed it around, but we didn't change the formation. I said to you at the time, this is probably a winning a sub designed to win the game. But in a way, it didn't, because Frankham was replaced by Polion, and he went out wide right, and didn't really. That position doesn't suit Dom at all. His pace really doesn't need to be hugging the touchline. He needs to be really in a 3 or either 2 playing central where he does all his damage. I'm not too sure whether it was a case the personnel we brought on was more the problem, or if it was, like you say, we run out of energy. It was a bit disappointing. I just felt there were some subs we could have, we had a lot of, you got Tom Beer and Alfie Egan on the bench, and you just wonder, was that a game where he just didn't trust them? Because, I'm not saying Alfie was your first sub to come off the bench, but, an Alfie Egan going around for 15 minutes, would that have been enough, or would that have been a little bit Mill might have sussed him out a little. I don't know, but yeah, maybe we did have run out of legs. But I also think the personnel we replaced didn't really make a massive impact.
Two players, I think we all agreed, who did make a massive impact coming back into the side after suspension and injury, respectively, were Lyle Taylor and Darius Charles. Do we want to start with Lyle? A second half performance against Southend, he seemed to have been wound up, shall we say, got himself sent off, fairly unfairly, depending on your point of view. But again, he was all action against Mill, wasn't he? And seems to be really enjoying his football at the moment, which is great to see after the start of the season where we weren't too sure.
Yeah, I think, Joel, he had a sending off, didn't he? He missed, did he get sent off at Mansfield, if I remember properly, last season? I think so, yeah. Straight red, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's Nicky Hunt, if I remember properly, and he got the 3-match ban and then come back rejuvenated. Of course, this is only a 1-match ban, but he just seems to have that fire in his belly that when Lyle Taylor has that edge about him, he's a nightmare to play against, I'd imagine. So great cross for the Tom Elliott's goal. It was just a ball with such pace that it was basically crying out for Tom to dive and do what he did and knock it in the bottom corner, or it was going to get deflected in by a defender because it was a nightmare ball to defend no matter what way you look at it. Lyle's interesting. I actually caught up with Lyle after the game and wished him Happy New Year, and we had a good chat, actually. Lyle, he's funny. I'm not going to say too much, he knows I do a podcast, but I sort of, I'm not going to say everything he said to me. One of the things that did strike me was that he did acknowledge that he was quite down after the Southend game. We got sent off. He said the referee sent him off for going over the ball, which he denies he did. He said he'd never done that. I think we sort of know Lyle. I don't think he's that sort of player. But one of the things he did say was that he was really down over Christmas, because of it, and was itching to go again. And I think that showed just by how much effort he put in. And I don't know about you, but I've never known someone to smile so much at a game. And genuinely looked like it's a pre-season game for him, but he played with the intensity that we know Lyle can, and it was just a joy to watch. And I'm really pleased. I'm really pleased how he performed.
Yeah, like I say, I think it just shows that he's enjoying his football. Can even afford a little bit of a laugh and a joke, even a bit of a laugh and a joke with his teammates, even when they might not have done particularly well. It was a great moment, I think, with Jake Reeves towards the end, where he totally miskicked across.
It was, and he stood there for ages, didn't he? He stood there for ages with this little look of what have you just tried to do. But the funny thing is that people that don't know is that Lyle and Jake, I think they live close to each other, and they spend a lot of time with each other, travelling in and stuff like that. So I think Jake knew how it was taken, but it was just the most funniest look of what were you trying to do there, mate.
Yeah, a lot of personality in this squad and in this team at the moment, coming through. Seeing it through Lyle at the moment, but also Darius Charles, we know, is a big character in the changing rooms, and how impressive was he stepping back in? Yeah,
massive. I said before, I think, if you compare him up against Robertson, you could say there's not loads and loads between them. However, that's just mainly on the night, technically, I just think there's so much difference between leadership qualities and communication and decision making, and he just does everything right. He didn't look rusty. He didn't look rusty at all. He looks like he's had a good couple of games back. But with Darius, you just get that. He's always his concentration levels are really good, and I just think he could be the difference with us now of just maybe pushing us. I can't hide the fact that I'm delighted he's back for the Saturday night game, because if ever a game is needed for characters and leadership and just doing the right things, Darius is perfect for that going into that cup game.
Now, we're still not in great form. I think it's 2 wins from the last 10. However, that performance against Millwall, has that put to bed or made us forget the games against Southend and Bristol Rovers? Are we looking at those as more of a blip now, where we let our standards slip a little bit and we're now back where we should be? Or are we just accepting that we might well be a mid-table team, that 1 week great, next week not so great?
Yeah, it could do. It's only 2 games, isn't it? I was getting a bit worried that we may end up, going on to a 3. You see, I look at Rochdale and when they had a really great start, and then went on a run of, sorry, not Rochdale, what about? Close to Bury. Bury had a great start. Bury, that would be the team. They were close. They were Manchester away, weren't they? Bury had a great start, and all of a sudden, well, we know the run they went on. Just absolutely full like anything. So just as runs are easy to get into, winning-wise, you get them the other way, and all of a sudden you're on like a nosedive down a league. But I'm glad in a way we stopped it really early on. 2 games against decent teams. Let's be fair about it. They're decent teams, but I know it's a Millwall, you could argue, are in better form than teams like Southend, but we made them look reasonably average, Nick, didn't we? I didn't really, yes, they got some good players, but I didn't really think they outbattled us. I didn't think they were more skillful than us, and I actually come away thinking, well, if that's a team that's in, just outside of playoff positions, then I'm not too worried about the second half of the season. As long as we keep them performance levels, it's up to it. We have to play at our utmost best, really, our top performance levels to compete, and we've just got to trust Neil Ardie will get the team selection right for most games.
One player we touched on that we think was most certainly playing at his maximum against Mill was Lyle Taylor, and that was reflected in our Man of the Match poll on Twitter. So let's catch up with all of these now. So we should actually, before we even talk about Mill, we should talk about Bristol Rovers and the Man of the Match poll there. Thank you very much to George Jones for sending us updates from Bristol Rovers and organising the poll. James Shea was the clear winner there with 57% of the vote, ahead of Tyrone Barnett on 26%, Paul Robinson on 13%, and Tom Elliott with 4%. And then against Millwall, Lyle Taylor, clear winner, 61% from over 100 votes. So thank you very much to all of those who voted. Darius Charles, as you mentioned, 20%, Tom Elliott 14%, and Jonathan Meads back in the team with 5%. Some 3-word match reports from Millwall as well. We had loads on Twitter this week. So at 9YRS Podcast, hashtag Don's 3-word report. There's so many, Stu. I don't know which ones to pick. I think Mike _overall deserved to win. Sums it up kind of nicely. I think we were probably the better side. Probably on another day would have won that game. I liked Ray Armfield. Great wall climbed with the wall pun. Hashtag Don's 3-word report. Thank you very much, Ray Armfield. And Paul Raymond, I think, is this week's winner. With, and I'm going to struggle to pronounce this properly because I struggle with words like this, but he's gone for goals, not gulls, following the famous seagull incident at the Den, where apparently nothing happened for about 75 minutes of that match, except for a seagull on the pitch. Thank you very much, Paul. I think that's a clear winner. One last thing we have to tidy up was last week we gave out our 2016 awards, and we couldn't decide who our Player of the Year should be, so we sent it out onto social media. Looking at the responses, or I should say measuring the responses on Twitter and Facebook, Stu, I think we can safely say that the general consensus of opinion amongst Wimbledon support base was Lyle Taylor in a very close second, but we are going to give it to Paul Robinson. He has got the popular vote. So Paul Robinson, Super. Congratulations. You are indeed the AFC Wimbledon 9 Years Podcast Player of the Year for the calendar year 2016.
Sounds good to me, doesn't it? I think well deserved, Robbo, and we might try and find him maybe some sort of like a trophy or something, maybe.
Yeah, I'll let you do that.
I'll do that, yeah. We'll do that, but yeah, well deserved winner, and yeah, pleased for him also against Millwall that he managed to win. He's unbeaten, so I'm sure that he can go back to the Den and hold his head up high.
John Green here. Thanks for listening to today's show, and don't forget to be awesome.
So with the FA Cup third round tie against Sutton on Saturday, we have invited AFC Wimbledon founding chairman Kris Stewart onto the podcast to discuss his memories of that very, very first fixture back at Gander Green Lane in 2002. At the time, Chris, we'd have had, 5-6 weeks to get prepared for that fixture, from having absolutely nothing after the FA's decision to actually playing a fixture for the very first time. It must have been a manic time for you in the lead up to that game. Did you have any, or what was your involvement with sort of first team affairs at that point?
First team affairs. The whole thing was manic. Yeah. 28th of May, nothing, 10th of July game. From a first, as far as the first team's concerned, I suppose the biggest part was getting ready for and trying to manage the, that trials, day, which you'll recall was on the, it was on the day of the third and fourth place playoff game in the World Cup.
Okay.
On the comms extensions, and I recall. I mean, Trevor Williams had the biggest part to play in that. But we sort of advertised for players who aren't rubbish and have a bit of pedigree to come along. And I remember Terry Eames expecting a relatively small number, and Trev and I both giving him updates on how many people were registering, and him genuinely thinking we were winding him up. about how many people were registering, how many players were registering. So when we got up to, I can't honestly remember. If I say 200 and someone calls me a liar, then they do. But when we got up to there, I mean, he really didn't believe, just genuinely just thought we were joking about how many people were actually coming along. So that was a big set piece. On top of that, there was, trying to find places to do that, places to train, for the players to train, once Terry had found a few from there and from his contacts and so on. And obviously something to play, I suppose.
Yeah, that was kind of a big thing.
And something to wear while playing. So there were a few things to sort out in that time, and it's kind of astonishing that they all happened, really.
Yeah, it was an incredible job you did at the time. I can only imagine what your life was.
It was great.
Like
I was brilliant. I really was.
Yeah, I'm sure. The 200 or so players you say there on the Commons extensions. Do you know how big our squad was when we arrived at Sutton? How many you'd whittled it down to, or as you say, got others in from elsewhere?
I mean, if you asked me that question, I had to answer. I'd say it was about 40, but so there was a number that were invited back, after that day on the extensions to a training session, and that was whittled down a couple of times through a number of sessions. It can only have been about 3 or maybe a squeeze 4 sessions that were fitted in between in what's less than 2 weeks, I think. Yeah. Between those two things. So I mean, who knows? I mean, I was just in preparation for the game and for chatting to you guys, I was just looking at the match report on the old OS and wondering how many of the names I remembered, and also if we actually captured everyone who played. I'm not sure we did we?
I'm not sure we did, to be honest with you. As you say, there were so many, and I'm guessing
there's 18 players listed, and I think I recognise most of their names, but there's definitely a couple that I'm like, I don't remember Daniel Scotto.
No.
Does anyone remember Daniel Scotto? I don't
ring a bell.
If Daniel Scotto is listening, I apologise profusely.
So how did the Sutton game come about, Kris? Then did Sutton approach us? Because I'm assuming Sutton never, in their wildest dreams, thought they were going to sell out that friendly game.
No, absolutely not. No, we kind of had to persuade them a little bit, really. I mean, Ivor did a lot of that, but Ivor and I both were talking to Bruce Elliott at Sutton. The franchise had a friendly booked at Carshalton on that day, and I think that the idea of us playing Sutton, it certainly appealed to Ivor and I's sense of mischief. But I think it also appealed to Bruce Elliott's sense of mischief as well. Obviously, Sutton and Carshalton being rivals, or at least rivals at the time, they're quite a long way away from each other in the pyramid these days, aren't they? So I think their biggest concern was the pitch, because it's quite an early game and their pitch was getting an awful lot of use at the time. Probably, I'm sure it still is, but it's a different setup now, isn't it? There, so they had to, he was talking about having to bribe the groundsman to allow them to play a game, but so I think it came from our side, but we were looking for a game. You wanted an early game that was local and friendly, and you could do a big launch at. Sutton's a big ground. It's we all know it, don't we? I mean, it's a big place. You can get a lot of people in, but also you can have a decent game there. So it seemed like a good place to play. First game, they were up for it. The fact that the franchise had a game booked on the same night, which they moved or called off, I can't remember which, but they didn't play that night anyway. We thought it'd be fun to see, how many people we could get there as opposed to them.
And when did you get the first hint? Because it's interesting when you go back to the trials and that, because if we go back to internet back in 2002, Twitter wasn't around. It wasn't,
No.
It wasn't. When did you get that sort of instinct or thinking that actually, do you know what, this could be more popular than what we think in terms of a rough estimate of a crowd going in there?
No, I remember we were talking about it for the game, and Bruce and Ivor and I were kind of chatting and sort of saying, well, if it was 1,000, that'd be great, wouldn't it? I mean, imagine 1,000 people at a pre-season game between two non-league clubs. That would be quite a thing. And I'm not sure if I originally believed that was possible. I guess I think I thought that was kind of at the top end of what was possible, and I think Bruce took a bit more convincing that it was going to be, that size of game, if you like. And Ivor's always optimistic. So he was, talking about big numbers. But I think just the way that everything built, the number of players signing up for the trials, the number of people sending us money when we put in an appeal for cash, and all of those things just kind of over that few weeks just built up a feeling that, this looks like it might well work, but if it doesn't, we're going to have a few people in the ground anyway for a bit of fun.
What were your responsibilities then before or prior to kickoff? Because there was a lot going on that day as well. I think we had a press conference, didn't we? I'm not sure what time that was actually. I mean, what time did you have to get to the ground? How was it dealing with the press in those circumstances? I think as well we were surprised by how many turned up as well for that.
Yeah, we were. I mean, so that was earlier on. I'm not sure. I couldn't tell you what time it was, but we'd have got there in the afternoon just to make sure that we got there, in plenty of time and so on. We had to set up. We were in their sort of whatever it is, their sponsors bar. For a sort of press conference, and there seemed to be quite a lot of cameras there, to like TV style cameras, So, and I know there were a couple of people following us around to kind of make a film, but there was also sort of local news and so on there. So that was good, and we were announcing our captain. Joe Sheeran would be our captain, and also announcing our sponsor as well. Sports Interactive, which was a major coup from the commercial point of view, definitely, and also gave us some clothes to play in because we used their in-house kit. Yes. So that helped. Otherwise, we'd have been in skins that night. That
would have made it even more memorable.
It would, yeah, and it was quite warm, so that was fine. So what else before the game? Well, I did quite a lot of press. I remember being on the pitch. I think, did we release some balloons on the pitch? I think we did, didn't we? Yeah. And there's a few pictures of like kids on the pitch with banners and stuff. So there's quite a lot of that sort of thing. I remember doing some stuff over the phone, on the radio. I think I can't remember, was it 5 Live? I think I might have been actually live on 5 Live when I heard that the kickoff had been put back for the second time, because the original kickoff was supposed to be 7:30, and it was put back twice. So, were you
involved in any of those decisions, or was that all being taken care of?
I probably would have been if I hadn't been on the phone. I mean, it was it was kind of at the time it was very much who's around who can make a decision about something like that. And really, I mean, that was kind of down to Sutton, really. I mean, they would ask us, but I mean, it was really about just people coming into the ground and a lot more people than anyone expected coming into the ground. And it just taking an awful lot longer. I think they had a bit of trouble with one of the turnstiles as well. So, but we were getting reports, the police are saying the roads blocked and et cetera, so it was taking quite a bit of time to get everyone in, really. There weren't any other problems, and in fact I think both managers would have preferred to kick off at the time they expected, but from that point of view, the game, to be honest, wasn't really about the game. It was about everything else.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Stu says there, talking about how many people turned up, what we're looking at, 4,500 at a conservative estimate.
4,657, I think, fined.
Wow. Of course you know that.
When did they
I
stop
can't possibly
counting?
argue with you. But,
No, it is funny because, I mean, clearly we have no idea whether there was 4,657 people in the ground or not. But we had to come up with an attendance figure. We had some idea of how many had come in. We had some idea of how many tickets we'd had to give to people and officials and so on. So Ivor and Bruce Elliott and I agreed that was a reasonable number. We had made an agreement on the basis that we would take, I think it was £2 a head from the gate for the club, which is quite unusual. But again, they were, it was quite unusual for them to get 4,500 through the door for a pre-season friendly. So it was something that we had to agree, it was reasonable between ourselves. So that's where we ended up. I'm not quite sure why it ended up with a 7. I don't know.
How do you find the radios? Did you? Because now we know you as an accomplished speaker and you take it in your stride. Back then, though, was that really quite nerve-wracking, or you just go with it, go with the flow?
Well, I'd done quite a bit of it in the previous year because having been chair of WISA over that year, where we'd had quite a decent media profile, really, considering the size of the club and the size of the fan base. So I'd done TV stuff. I'd done Football Focus. I'd done something on what was that channel that came and went? ITV Digital? Is that what it was?
Yeah,
ITV Digital.
I'm sitting next to who's that? Yeah, Terry Burton, doing a bit of ITV Digital. So we've done a fair bit of talk radio and that kind of thing. So I'd kind of got used to it quite a bit over that time. So by then, I suppose it was not quite a new thing, although there's a big difference, I guess, between campaigning and organising, I suppose, and actually presenting and saying, look, this is us and here we are. But I think, to be honest, on that night, mostly I was just kind of completely bowled over by what a massive occasion it was, and just trying to keep it together, really. At the same time as trying to enjoy it, trying to make sure you enjoy it. It's a bit like people say about their own wedding, I suppose, that you have to make sure you enjoy it as well as being in charge of making sure that everything happens properly.
Yeah, you need to make a note of that one, Stu.
I'm taking note.
There we go. In terms of the actual game, then, I know you said, and we're all fully aware that the result and the actual game of football that took place that evening wasn't actually of the greatest importance, really, in the grand scheme of things. But what were your memories of that 90 minutes? For the record, we must say, we did, of course, lose by 4-0 with 2 goals from a certain Kevin Cooper.
It was, yeah. It was 0-0 at half-time, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
I think it was, yeah. The first half was goalless. And from my memory is that the first half was a bit more like a game and the second half was a bit sillier. But just in terms of the number of changes and so on.
Like an international friendly, yeah.
Yeah, a bit like an international friendly, yeah. Yeah, a bit like an international friendly.
Probably the first time that comparison's been made, but anyway.
Yeah, so I mean, we had the ball in the net at one point fairly early on. We were quite close to scoring, I seem to remember, once or twice, and then we got smashed. So I think there was kind of an interest. The game itself sort of kept things going. Who's this player, and who's that player, and are they any good, and that kind of thing. For the first half, and then I think the second half, I don't really have much of a memory of, except thinking we might as well call it quits now, kind of thing. We're not gonna win, and it's been a bit of a long day.
Yeah, I can imagine it was an incredibly long day for you on that Wednesday. Pitch invasion that followed. Yeah, is that something you expected?
No, no, but that was a bit silly, really, because we should have done. I mean, I don't know. I guess one of the things is we didn't really know who was going to be there. So even once we'd realised that there were going to be a lot of people there, you don't really know who they are exactly. So you can imagine there'll be a number of. Obviously, the majority of people are going to be Wimbledon fans of one kind or another, but are they just the locals who live from around that area? Would there be some Sutton fans there? Yeah. Would there be some ground hoppers and sort of history buffs, if you like, there? And what exactly is the makeup of the crowd and all that kind of thing? What's the thing going to be? And then the game itself, wasn't really a spectacle, certainly as it wore on. So what's the reaction going to be at the end? Well, I expect it's probably going to be positive because it's been a good occasion and everything's gone well. But there was a lot of people on the pitch. There was a lot of people on the pitch.
Well, were you expected also to be addressing them afterwards, or did that come because of the pitch invasion?
It was kind of because of the pitch invasion, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it wasn't, wasn't something that I was expecting at all. I'm not sure that I was particularly expecting something in anything in particular, like everyone would troop off home or everyone would whatever it was, but I wasn't expecting that, and it was, yeah, it was quite extraordinary.
So we spoke about, obviously, before the game, you thought 1,000 serve estimate and stuff like that. Did you, at the end of, when everyone had gone home, or when you'd gone home, when he even finished, did you sort of sit back and think, we're actually onto a good thing here?
It was a big part of thinking this is going to work. It may be in the top sort of 25% of what we could have imagined, maybe a bit higher than that, actually. Because I think, one of the things that we all kind of said, the people who were closely involved over the first few weeks, day to day, I think we all said, look, we're going to do this and it's going to work. If only the people who put their hand up in the community centre on the 30th of May, turn up, that'll be good. And we'll have a few hundred people or whatever at a game, and that'll be good, and it'll be good for this level, and we'll enjoy it, and we'll have a club, and that's the important thing. So building up to the Sutton game, you're kind of thinking, actually, it's going to be a bit more than that, but will that be, everyone thinks it's great at the beginning, and then when people realise the football's a bit different, and the facilities are a bit different, and so on. Will people tail off a bit? Will those numbers tail off a bit? Again, there'll still be, a big core for the level of football we're playing at. It will still be a thing like that. But will those people come along? And then to get 4,500, I mean, I 2 weeks, 3 weeks before that, I thought 1,000 was a lot. To get 4,500, that's a lot.
Yeah.
People. And some people will say they expected that. Fine. I didn't, I didn't expect to have to put the game, for us to have to put the game back twice, and I didn't expect, all of that. So I think, you sort of stop in the cold light of, well, not the cold light of day, but after the game, late at night, and think, all right, this is a thing.
Yeah, I think that's sort of reflected in, like we say, after the game, you're speaking to the crowd on the pitch, on the microphone, and obviously Ivor steals the line about AFC Wimbledon being born. Got that one in first, but then I think after that you followed it up, for me, perfectly understated for the occasion, but also a message saying, look, this isn't a one-off, we're in this for long term. And it was just, right, guys, we'll see you on Saturday, Dulwich away. Yeah. We're going to go with this now. And I think that sent the message out that this isn't a protest, we're making this work. Yeah.
And that was, the biggest thing, really. Just turning that around. The whole of it was all about turning that around. For me, anyway. Sorry, everyone has their own story and their own thoughts about it, of course. But for me, it was all about, okay, we've done all that, and in the end, we've lost. Let's be honest. We fought a fantastic fight. Everybody says we fought a fantastic fight, and everyone agreed with us, apart from the 2 of the 3 people who made the decision. So. And that was done, and we needed to turn around and do something, do our own thing, as whoever, had done, 100 years before and all of that. So, really, really important for me just to think, yes, this is a massive occasion, and it was a massive occasion, and a great way to kick off the whole project, but not, not a one-off. It's not a one-off.
So looking at it, about 14 and a half years later, we go back in a competitive third round FA Cup game. It's unreal when you think about it. We literally were 5 divisions below them when we restarted, and now we go in 2 divisions above them.
Yeah.
It's 14 and a half years. That ain't a lot of time at all to have that major impact. Does that make you quite proud, Kris, when you look back at that sort of the efforts and went into it?
If you look at the colour of my hair in those photographs and the colour of it now, I think you'll find that 14 and a half years is actually quite a long time. But no, I mean, it's amazing. I guess, I'm not... I'd be a liar if I said I don't, I'm not driven by ego. I have an ego, absolutely, and I don't think anyone would have done, some of the things that I got involved in without having some kind of ego as well. But at the same time, the whole proud thing, it's like weird, but there are moments. Most of the time, when I was doing it for full time for that first 4.5 years. you just get caught up in everything. You don't ever stand back and look at it. And then every now and then you stand back and look at it, or someone asks you a question, something like you guys asking about, that time 14 years ago or whatever. And you think, oh yeah, we did a good thing here. This is a big thing. But there's one particular time that really sticks in my mind. I couldn't tell you when it was, but at Kings Meadow I was queuing up at the comps window to pick up a ticket or buy a ticket or whatever. And I sort of became aware of a guy behind me talking to his kid. And eventually I sort of realised that he was sort of talking about me, saying that see that guy in front of you, he was blah, 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 and without him, blah, 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 and all that kind of thing. And I sort of turned around, just to sort of smile. And this kid is, like he might have been born that night sort of thing. He was that sort of age, born that night at Sutton or maybe even since then. And, that's the sort of time when you go, wow, this is a real thing, that it isn't just something we did. This is something we made, and it's there for him, for that kid who wasn't, even around at the time. And then that kid will have kids, and in 100 years' time, there will be an AFC Wimbledon, and we did that, and that's quite a thing.
Polion Go this week then. Don Polion has travelled quite a distance from Luton, where he was last week, Stu.
Okay, cool.
Much like I was. This week he's travelled to a club that apparently have been the subject of a movie.
Of a movie? What club has had loads of stuff going on in the background recently? Oh, there's loads of stuff. Leyton Orient.
Not Leyton Orient. Not quite a long distance from Luton either.
No, that's what I just thought when I said that.
Never mind.
Well, if you're walking, it's quite far.
True. Moving on. Dom's got to the stadium. He has noticed there is one huge stand, but the top tier is not open, and talking to the locals, apparently it hasn't been open for quite some time.
Nottingham Forest.
Oh, it's a good try. But no, not Nottingham Forest.
Okay.
There is a link to Nottingham Forest, that might help you. Final clue, another statue. He's noticed a lot of statues outside football grounds on his travels this season. There's another one here. As he walks away from the ground, he noticed there is a statue of a title-winning captain. And this is slightly cryptic. The surname of this title-winning captain suggests he made quite an impression.
Try to think, who would have a statue? Most teams have statue of players that no one's ever heard of nowadays, don't they? I'm going to go for something random. Like, I'm trying to think. Preston might have had, possibly their former years. I'm going to go for Preston.
Do you want another go? I'll just give you a clue. The surname making an impression. Someone who does impressions. No? No. Okay, do you want the anagram clue?
Yeah, let's have the anagram and see if I can get enough of that. I'm not unlikely.
Anal lead rod.
Ellen Rose.
Yay! Well done.
Oh, crikey.
You got it on the anal lead rod question. Clue, sorry.
Yes, worry. Do you know what? I was going to say Leeds before I said Leyton Orient, the first one, because I thought it's got something that's had a bit of a razzmatazz gone around it, and of course Leeds has. They've sold a 50% ownership to, haven't they?
I read this.
Yeah, yes. Leeds United. Damn. United.
Any other reason why perhaps Don Polion might have gone to Leeds this week, Stu?
Oh, Joe, right, listeners, we said off record that I know where he is. He's in Leeds already, and I didn't even think you would be clever enough to outwit me. Well,
as soon as you mentioned that to me, I thought it's a good thing that, because I spotted that on Twitter earlier, and I thought, well, send him off to Leeds for the day. Because he does actually travel all these distances. He does actually visit these stadiums. We're not just making it up.
No, of course. And
actually happens.
How embarrassing. The one place I know he is, I didn't guess.
Oh, well. Well, just to clear up some of those clues then. Subject of a movie, of course, The Damned United, which is the Brian Clough link to Nottingham Forest that I mentioned as well.
Yes, great film as well.
Do you know who the statue is of?
No, not Don Reeve, is it? It's... I'm trying to figure it is now. Not Jackie Charlton, isn't it? Jackie Charlton.
No, it wasn't Jackie Charlton. It was Billy Bremner.
Of course, the
It
little
says
terrier.
surname with Rory Bremner.
Oh, which is
Who
where
does
the impression is.
See? It's like we write this.
Yes, it's just too good. It's too good. But of course, I got with the anagram, which I never normally do, but it sounded quite obvious.
Right, time to look ahead then to Saturday's game with Sutton. We've been joined by Sutton season ticket holder Andy Rudge, who's going to help us have a gander at how the conference side are getting on this season. The gander joke, Stu insisted I went with it, so there you go. Andy, how are you getting on? You all right?
I'm very well. Looking forward to Saturday now.
Yes, we all are. We all are. It's a huge occasion for both of our clubs. How are things going for Sutton then? Is this your first or second season now back at what I keep calling the conference? It's the National League.
It's the National League.
Yes.
It's the first season back. Okay. So we were promoted last season on the back of a 25-game unbeaten run in the National League South.
Not too shabby.
No, it was a very good season last season. In the summer, we've lost two or three important players. And this season we're mid-table, probably points-wise closer to relegation than the playoffs. So I think it kind of shows it's been a big step up for Sutton going into the National League. There's a lot of sort of ex-league clubs in the National League, lots of clubs who still are run as professional clubs, and of course Sutton aren't. So it's been a big step up. But that said, we've had a good. At home we're very strong. I think we've got, say, 35 points in the league, and I think about 30 of those have come at home. So at home we're very strong, but we have struggled on the road.
So obviously your home form was good, Andy. So would you say that's because Sutton have obviously had the unique advantage of having a surface that is not readily available out there in the conference? Has that played a big part this year, do you think, or is more the impetus of going through from the Conference South?
I think if you look at it logically, yes, you have to say that when you get 90% of your points at home, and you've got an artificial surface, it must have an advantage. But I don't think it's just down to that. I don't quite know what it is. I think actually we're better than our points that we've accumulated. I think we're better than that suggests away from home. I think we've been unlucky at times, but yeah, of course the pitch is does help us. Yeah.
So I'm saying like this season, I think the only time Sutton have been turned around, I noticed Dover turned her over 6-0, wasn't it?
Yeah, but that was midweek before the Cheltenham FA Cup game, and okay. I wouldn't say Sutton had a big enough squad to have a reserve side, but if they did, then we did play a few more of the squad players in that game in preparation for the big FA Cup game against Cheltenham. Plus, from memory, I think we had a man sent off in the first half. It was just a bad night all round. But I don't really think that's too indicative of our form at home, and Dover are a good team as well. Like they're in the playoffs, so I think that was an exception.
So the Cheltenham game, was it 2-1 late goal? If I remember properly, it was a late short goal, wasn't it? That got it through.
Yeah, and it was very similar to we played Forest Green in the fourth qualifying round, and it was a very similar game because in both games we went 1-0 down, and particularly against Cheltenham, if I'm quite honest with you, we looked out of our depth in the first half. Like at half time, our hopes were really just not to be embarrassed. We looked absolutely out of our depth, and then we got a very early goal in the second half, and just went on from there. You could see just the confidence kind of grow within Sutton and perhaps drain a little from Cheltenham, who are themselves struggling in League Two. So it's, the old cliche, it was a real game of two halves. As I said, first half we looked absolutely out of our depth, and we're 1-0 down. But like the Forest Green game, we get the equalise and then look strong. And in both games actually, we've got late winners through Rory Deacon, who's going to be the man to watch for you guys.
Well, I was going to mention this, talking about that Cheltenham game, your 2 goal scorers there. I want to speak about both of them. Let's start with Rory Deacon. He's highly rated, I believe, and been sought after by a number of clubs. Can you tell us a little bit about him? Is he a young player that's come through, or where's he come from?
No, we got him in the summer. So I think his background, I think he's an ex-Arsenal youth team player.
Mm-hmm. Hold on, he's an English player that was at Arsenal and didn't make it into the first team. I don't believe you.
Yeah, we've actually got a couple of them. We've got Craig Eastman as well, who actually played for Arsenal 10 or so times. But yeah, Roy Deacon. Yeah, he started out as a youth team player at Arsenal. I think last season he was at Crawley. Or certainly in recent years, he's been at Crawley.
Yes.
And he's kind of lost his way there, but he's come to Sutton, and he looks a very, very effective player. You know, he's a winger, but he's quick. He can dribble well. He beats men, and he comes up with important goals. He's got as I said, the winner in both of the FA Cup games. So he's very much one of the main men.
And your other striker, the other goal scorer against Cheltenham, you talk about players that perhaps have lost their way. I don't mean this in any derogatory way towards Sutton, but Matt Tubbs.
I guess you guys know more about Matt Tubbs than I do. Like, that was his first game for Sutton in the FA Cup, so I think he's only played 3 or 4 matches. But he was at loan at Wimbledon a couple of years ago.
Yeah, sore point, Andy, sore point.
But he had a decent record, didn't he? Goal scoring wise, I think at Portsmouth and Wimbledon.
Yeah, Matt Tubbs left us, and he was still the second top goal scorer, and he left in the January window. So it shows you how many goals he got for us. What's he like, Matt Tubbs? He played many games because he's obviously all his work is done really in the penalty area. He doesn't really come out of the penalty area too much. So how's he been?
Well, as I said, he hasn't played many games, so it's hard to judge. We last season we've still got a guy called Dan Fitcher up front. And just like you said, just like you were describing Matt Tubbs, like he didn't leave the penalty area much, but he scored 20 plus goals in the promotion season. But this season he's really struggled. So I think that's part of the reason why Matt Tubbs has come in, because we really miss Dan Fitch's goals. I think our top scorer is actually, certainly in the league, is Jamie Collins, our centre back. So it just shows you that we're really missing a goal scorer. So hopefully Matt Tubbs, if he does nothing else throughout the 90 minutes, if he puts the ball in the net, then it's job done.
So just thinking out loud, you probably won't get this joke, so I will go ahead with it because it's still funny to me. Yeah. But obviously ex-goalkeeper Ross Warner you've got from who's at Wimbledon previously. What's his timekeeping like?
You're right, I don't get a joke.
So Ross Warner notoriously got stuck on the M25, was it, Nick, if I remember properly?
That was the A3.
The A3, sorry, before a cup game, and in the end missed the game and was couldn't play the game in the end.
Could you imagine somebody not travelling to watch that game, Coventry at home in the FA Cup? Someone decided they'd just stay at home instead.
Yeah, I did. I watched it on TV. But yeah, Ross Warner notoriously was late for a game. He got stuck on the A3, couldn't get off the A3. There was an accident, and in the end had to be taken off the team sheet. So was a bit notorious. But Ross is a good goalkeeper, and to be fair to him, did nothing wrong at our place. He's a decent goalkeeper at that level, isn't he?
He's a very good goalkeeper at that level. Yeah, I think he was in the National League South Team of the Year last season, and he's done well this season. I think that Dover game aside, we've kept a lot of clean sheets at home, and he's been an important part of that. So
yeah,
he's a good signing for us.
So I suppose if we look to Saturday, a sellout anticipated.
Anticipated.
Well, it is sold out, isn't it?
I was going to say, surely it is a sellout.
It is a sellout.
There we go.
But I think a lot of the fans are excited. Outside of drawing a team from a Premiership or the Championship, this is the biggest game for us. This is the draw that I think everyone wanted, maybe in the first or second round. But I think it's more excitement. I don't think anyone's really anticipating that we're going to win. I think Sutton are huge underdogs, but. It's just a big occasion, and there's a lot of excitement around. I think there's been even a song written in commemoration of the big game.
We've heard.
Yeah, I've not heard the song.
No, I've not heard the song, but I'm aware of it, as well as a scarf that has been made for the occasion as well.
Yeah, a half and half scarf.
A half and half scarf.
I didn't realise we were that. It must admit, it's been one of those things actually, because for Wimbledon to be a big draw is, of course, we're well known. Obviously, with our story and stuff, we're normally well looked after and teams look forward to playing us. But I think this is the first time we've actually really been a sort of not a big favourite, but like going to an underdog and stuff like that. So it'll be new territory for us. But it's a local derby.
Yeah, the Wimbledon I used to watch. No one looked forward to playing.
Yes, and me and that's what Nick was saying. Me and Andy go back a long way. Andy being an Ipswich fan by obviously, well, not by trade, but just by generally an Ipswich fan, which I always found funny. Really, being an Ipswich fan. And then you've gone with the amber and chocolate now. So why are they called the amber and chocolate? What is that all about?
Stu, really?
No, but I don't understand. Is their kit really chocolate? Is it? I always thought Sutton had a really dodgy kit.
It's a terrible colours, and I think by calling it amber and chocolate, it just makes it sound a bit better than yellow and brown, which is obviously what it truly is.
Just out of interest, Andy, do you know? Just very quickly change the subject. Do you know why Birmingham City are known as the Blues?
Yeah, all right. I know I stated the obvious.
I must admit, Andy, I don't see amber when I see Sutton's kit. I must say, I must see yellow, sort of a Norwich kind of yellow. So I can understand why you wanted to go and watch them.
That was a cheap shot.
Yeah, the Sutton kit's bad, but not as bad as the Norwich away kit this season. That's
well, to be fair, Norwich, from my experience with Norwich, their kit any season is not the best.
So I understand, obviously, just as we wrap up, I understand at Sutton that it's not as actually been segregated heavily this year, is it? I understand it's been a little bit of a sort of, not a free-for-all, but I know there's been a bit of a natural sort of like relaxed segregation. Is that right this year with the conference?
Yeah, and it was the same last year, and it's been the same this year. It's great to watch because what generally happens is the fans or the ultras, the singing fans will stand behind the goal that the team's attacking. So at half time, the fans switch ends. The home and away fans. Obviously not on Saturday, because I think there's segregation on Saturday. I think you've got to enter through the sort of park entrance and will be just behind one goal. But as was the case of the Cheltenham game.
Yeah,
but no, it's like the old days. It's like the old days. The fans swap ends at half time. It's great to watch.
Well, hopefully we'll be sort of a couple of goals up at half time, and we won't mind then, and we'll be in quite good moods. Hopefully, but I think it's going to be a tough game. I don't know about Nick. What's your prediction for Saturday?
I think we are headed for a replay, and I think a lot of that is to do with the pitch. I think it's going to make it very, very difficult for us.
Yeah,
it's got a draw written all over it for me. What do you think, Andy?
I'd be delighted with a replay. I think we'll score. We generally score at home, so I think probably a score draw would be a good result for us. Yeah, I guess it depends on the team Wimbledon put out, because I didn't really watch your game against Curzon Ashton, but presumably you must have rested some players to have been 3-0 down.
Sadly not, no.
That's a very complimentary thing to say, but no, we didn't.
We didn't whatsoever.
Well, I guess if we both start as bad as we did in the last round, because I said Sutton were dreadful in the first half against Cheltenham, then it's anyone's game. But I just think it's a shame it's not on telly, to be honest with you, considering how exciting that both of our last round matches were. It's a shame. So I think Sutton would be very happy with a replay to improve the chances of getting the televised match and maybe earn some money.
Yeah, because I think it's a match of the day highlights game, I believe. That it's going to be. So it's going to be a match of the day. But yeah, I think you're right. It would have been nice to catch the cameras, but of course they've gone for the typical Manchester United every round really for Manchester United in the FA Cup, haven't they, as usual? So
there are some very poor picks at TV this time round, but I think we are the featured game on the radio at least. So on 5 Live at least will be the main commentary. So that's something.
I think it's live in the US as well. It's what I saw.
That's right. It is. Yeah, that's right.
Fox Sports.
This is mad.
So all the Wimbledon fans that are locked out, and I think now if any Wimbledon fans who want to get a ticket have got a ticket by any means they have been able to get them, so that'd be fun. But I personally think it'll be a draw. I think we will. I know Neil Hardy's alluded to the fact that there are some players that might not be suited to the surface, and also that. He does. He's been. I chatted to him in one of the previous games, and he did say that he felt the pitch could be a leveler, and I don't think he was joking in that. I think he was generally thought that the pitch was a leveler in terms of your Sutton United are used to it week in, week out, and I think we've trained on it a couple of times. But I think I expect it to be a tough game, and I will take a replay happily now and go through in a replay. Interesting. And just to wrap up, this will make you laugh, Andy, our last competitive game against Sutton United was back in 2005 in the Surrey Senior Cup. How things change.
That was a memorable evening, was it not? Was it not Frankie Howard with the winning goal, who then went in goal after our keeper got injured? Was that right?
It was. But yeah, back in 2005. So it's
Wow.
pretty scary now to think we're playing each other in the third round of the FA Cup.
Should be good. Very much looking forward to it. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Andy.
Oh no, thanks guys. Thanks for inviting me.
Enjoy the game on Saturday from wherever you'll be watching.
I will. I'll be in the traditional stand behind the goal.
The Ultras.
I'll be in with the Ultras. Yeah, the Amber and Chocolate Ultras.
I will look forward to it, Andy.
And we'll see you at King's Meadow for the replay.
Great. Look forward to it.
All right, that brings us to the end of this week's show. So thank you very much for joining us, Stu.
Thank you very much, Nick.
Do not forget that updates from Sutton will be available on our Twitter and our Instagram at 9YRS Podcast. As we mentioned there with our interview with Andy, we believe 5 Live are doing a radio commentary on it as well. So if you can't make the game, tune into Radio 5 and you can follow events there. Also check in on our Twitter for our halftime trivia. We started this against Millwall on Monday. So keep an eye out for that one. Stu, the trivia question on Monday for Millwall was, do you remember the last player to score a winning goal against Millwall for us?
Probably going back to when we played them back in the old League Cup, sort of thought. No, a winning goal, you say? A
winning goal, yeah.
I'm trying to think the team that won that was back then was people like Jason Yule, Carl Court, so I'll go for Jason Yule.
It came a little bit later than that, actually, in a championship fixture in 2002. Kevin Cooper, Mark 1.
Of course, I forgot about when we got relegated.
Yeah.
Okay, so half-time trivia. I must have missed that.
You might well have done, but we shall 4G/3G permitting at Sutton on Saturday. Have another one of those ready for you at half-time if you're on your phone or wherever you are. So keep an eye out for that. And otherwise, thank you for listening and join us next week when we'll be joined by the Watford manager again, just because I'm finding their form hilarious. We'll see you then.
Yes. Hint, hint. Oh, yeah. I'll tell you. I'm thinking. I'm sitting there thinking, that's a long sarcasm from Nick. He doesn't really take that long. Oh, sorry.